Henry Wilson Coil talk about the Masonic funeral ceremony. In his encyclopedia, he writes, Freemasonry has a religious service to commit the body of a deceased brother to the dust whence it came, and to speed the liberated spirit back to the great source of light. Many Freemasons make this flight with no other guarantee of a safe landing than their belief in the religion of Freemasonry. Notice he says religion of Freemasonry. If that is a false hope, the fraternity should abandon funeral services and devote its attention to activities where it is sure of its ground and its authority. From all of this, I can only conclude that Freemasonry is a religion because it does offer instruction and promises of how a man may get to heaven. That's just another way of saying that Freemasonry is presenting a plan of salvation. If you just joined us, we're investigating the question, is Freemasonry a religion? We've already found out that it fits the definition of religion as given by Webster, and we've already seen that it does offer a plan of salvation, how a man can go to heaven. But then there are some Masons that would say, but Freemasonry cannot be a religion because it has no creed, it has no confession of faith, it has no theology, no ritual of worship. Well, we want to take a look at those, and first, can any Mason say that he has no creed? Here's what Henry Wilson Coil in his Masonic Encyclopedia has to say about that. He says, does Freemasonry have a creed, or tenet, or dogma to which all members must adhere? Does Freemasonry continually teach and insist upon a creed, tenet, and dogma? Does it have meetings characterized by the practice of rites and ceremonies in and by which its creed, tenet, and dogma are illustrated by myths, symbols, and allegories? If Freemasonry were not religion, what would have to be done to make it such? Nothing would be necessary, or at least nothing but to add more of the same. Then Coil says, that brings us to the real crux of the matter. The difference between a lodge and a church is one of degree and not of kind. Some think because it is not a strong or highly formalized or highly dogmatized religion, such as the Roman Catholic Church, it can be no religion at all. But a church of Friends, Quakers, exhibits even less formality and ritual than does a Masonic lodge. And then look what Coil says in conclusion. He says, the fact that Freemasonry is a mild religion does not mean that it is no religion. But can any Mason really say that he has no creed? In reality, no person can become a Mason without a confession of faith in a supreme being. He also must believe in the immortality of the soul, give honorable service to God by practicing the secret arts of Masonry, say prayers to deity, and take oaths of secrecy. I want you to listen now to one part of the Masonic creed, their belief in the immortality of the soul that is taught during the Masonic funeral ceremony.
For me, that memorial funeral service is one of the most profound things in Masonry. Standing before the mourners, the family of the man whose body rests in that coffin, reading from a book that is used universally throughout Masonry for this service, talking specifically about how this man's fellowship with me in my lodge and what he learned in that lodge and how the things that he learned in that lodge were helping him, in fact, making it possible for him to get to heaven. That's very, very profound. What we were trying to do through that service is to ease the pain in the hearts of the mourners, but more significantly, show them that they had nothing to worry about. Their loved one was safe at home in that celestial lodge above because of the things that he had learned and done in Masonry.
I believed in my heart that what I was saying was true because I believed the teachings of Freemasonry before I was a Christian was true on how to make a man good and how to get to heaven. And when I talked to the deceased family, I also comfort them with the same words of belief that I had, that this was true. At the point at which I found, as far as myself is concerned, what actually cemented the fact that this was true, even before I was a Christian, was because standing beside me at some of the services, as well as standing beside me in the lodge, as well as taking part in the ceremonies, were Masons that were elders, deacons, Sunday school teachers, and pastors of my church that I even went to myself and was a member of before I was a Christian. So thereby, my thinking that it was wrong was completely put at ease because those I really trusted in knowing the Word were standing right beside me.
If what Jack said is correct, how can any Mason truthfully say he has no confession of faith in a doctrinal statement? Let me ask you, do all religions believe in the doctrine of the immortality of the soul? The answer is no. Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses, Armstrongites, and Buddhists, to name just a few, do not. Do all believe in a supreme being? No. Hindus believe in millions of gods. So do Mormons. At death, do all believe they will reside in the celestial lodge in the sky for all eternity? No. Hindus and Buddhists believe in the extinction of the person. Mormons believe they can become gods themselves. Jehovah's Witnesses believe only 144,000 will get to reside in heaven, and all the rest who aren't annihilated will stay on earth. Right here, it's very plain to see that the Masonic Lodge has its own very distinct doctrinal statement. Then I want you to notice that Masonic teachings are accepted by Masons as authoritative dogma. That is, principles and instruction taught and held by their own body of believers. And Masonic dogma is not held by all others. That's exactly what dogma is, a distinct set of beliefs. And Masonic dogma is very distinct. Then, how can anyone say Masonry has no theology? Well, the definition of theology, theos, God, plus legion, to speak, is to speak of God. Masonry speaks of God, demands belief in God, informs each candidate that the true name of God has been lost, and then in a later degree reveals that lost name. In the 7th or Royal Arch degree, you can look it up in your manual, the lost name that is given is Jah, Bull, An, the joining of Jehovah, Baal, and Osiris, something that the God of the Bible strictly forbids. But I want you to listen to Webster's dictionary define the word theology and then compare that to Masonry. Webster defines theology as the relationship between God and the universe, a specific form or system as expounded by a particular religion or denomination. Now, does Masonry have its specific form, which clearly spells out exactly how one is to perform their ceremonies? Of course it does. It is the ritual. Then, can any truthful Mason say that Masonry has no ritual of worship? Well, obviously Masonry has 32 degrees of ritual, but is the ritual worship? Now, I want you to look at Webster's dictionary, how he defines the word worship. Webster says worship is defined as a prayer or other rites showing reverence or devotion for a deity, for a god. According to this definition from Webster's, aren't Masons worshiping in every lodge meeting they hold? Then finally we want to ask, how can any Mason say that in the lodge they have no symbols that are religious in the sense of symbols that are found in a church or synagogue? Listen.
The symbols are related to the character of man to man. They are not related to God. We have no symbols that are religious in the sense of symbols in a church.
Well, as worshipful master and conferring those degrees for many years, I didn't look at it that way. I had a chaplain to my left, and every lodge had to be open and closed with prayer. Every lodge had to have a Bible upon the altar of some religion. Every lodge made the candidate obligate himself upon that Bible. Also, in the lodge, we have all various things and tools regarding religious worship. We have the plan of salvation through the working tools, the apron that I wear, telling me by my purity, life, and conduct, I will gain admission to the celestial lodge above. Over top of my head, the letter G, signifying deity. So as I taught it as a worshipful master, I saw Freemasonry really as having many symbols regarding, that would recall it to be a religion. In a church, you have a Bible and maybe a cross. In a Masonic lodge, you have a Bible, a letter G, and many other symbols that point to me, to religion.
In conclusion, tonight we have seen that Freemasonry does fit every standard definition of religion. It does offer a system of salvation. It does have a creed. It does have a confession of faith. It does have a theology. It does have a ritual of worship. And it does have symbols like those found in a church. Henry Wilson Coyle, in his Masonic Encyclopedia, closes this debate when he says, nothing herein is intended to be an argument that Freemasonry ought to be religion. Our purpose is simply to determine what it has become and is.